So 6 years ago, in February of 2017, I went to a convention, a nerd convention. It was Nerdfightaria's 10-year anniversary. And it was an incredible weekend with offline friends and online friends meeting together. And the highlight of the whole thing was this concert where we filled the convention center and we all sang and danced together. And I have this one perfect, beautiful memory of us all together singing the words with our hands in the air, singing the words, "The weapon we have is love." We were singing along to Harry and the Potters. And it was this one perfect, beautiful moment of solidarity. And it's tainted now. Tainted because Rowling's actions in the intervening years have tainted absolutely everything that's ever been connected to Harry Potter because she is using her social capital to hurt trans people, including people I consider dear friends. She herself even retweeted and sicked her followers on my dear friend Jessie Gender, who has since been dealing with a lot of harassment. And I will direct you to her videos to learn more about that. But yeah, this woman has tainted everything connected with her franchise. And yes, I know some people like to talk about how, we should have known that it was wrong because there were bad things in the books. And yeah, there was a lot there that was, in hindsight, was seriously bad. And even by that, well, by that point, we've been into discussing the problems, the weird choice with the house elves and the lack of gay representation and the appalling treatment of fat people. We long sort of been talking about the books critically, but all art has problems. And usually you can still, if you enjoy things critically, there's still often something to enjoy there. I still enjoy Buffy the Vampire Slayer, despite Joss Whedon being an absolutely horrible person. But and a lot of the problems that were there were not uncommon at the time of writing. So you can't really, yeah, I understand the criticisms, but I also, you know, at the time was able to still critically enjoy it. But there's a difference between a creator of a work of art being generally shit, um, and them doing active harm to people. And more than that, even is that Rowling has said that her royalties and the acclaim that she gets bolsters her, you know, is what comforts her and tells her that people are on her side. And we are not on her side, to be clear. Speaking as a cis woman, this woman does not speak for me. None of these turfs speak for me. You can hear that loud and clear from my, seriously, from my at birth naturally grown cervix if you really need to hear it, that no, this woman does not speak for me. And I do not feel safer or more protected in a world with turfs and gender critical activists. I feel safer with every trans person on the planet than I feel with any single gender critical or turf person. You are not making the world safer for me. You do not speak for me. And I am not alone in saying that. I stand with I stand with fellow women who are trans, and I stand with my non-binary friends, and I stand with trans men. People trying to live their authentic lives are not a threat to me. And if they are a threat to you, you need to seriously think about your life. And I think I've been clear about that before, that I have no patience whatsoever for TERFs or their ilk. But I haven't talked about Hogwarts and Harry Potter specifically because I didn't really feel I had a whole lot to add. And I'm still not sure that I have a huge amount to add to the discussion, but I feel like at this point when I'm seeing so much harm done that I want to say something. And something that I can add to the conversation is I have some education in ethics. And I'm seeing a lot of people use no ethical consumption under capitalism as a thought ending cliche and a get out of responsibility card when it comes to buying this latest piece of merchandise from this stupid turf lady. And that would be the Hogwarts Legacy game. And yes, I'm aware she had no involvement in the actual making of it. It is still her intellectual property. It still keeps her relevant in culture and adds to her social capital. It also adds to her financial capital, but she has more money than like 100 people could ever use in 100 lifetimes. So I think actually hurting her social capital is much more important than her financial capital. I do not wish her harm, for the record. I wish her irrelevance. But unfortunately, she is not irrelevant. And currently, her actions and this game and her fans are causing a great deal of harm, including to people I know personally. So let's talk about no ethical consumption under capitalism, because if you're going to say this, you need to know what it means and understand the ethical, understand your position as an ethical agent under capitalism. So it is not a thought ending cliche. It is essentially a perfect is the enemy of good statement. There is no perfectly ethical consumption under capitalism. There is no way to live a life in our current world without causing harm. I don't know that there was ever a way to live a human life without causing harm in some ways. I don't know that there's any way to live a life. Maybe if you're a tree, but at other times it was possible to have it be a bit more equitable or a bit more minimal harm. But under capitalism, there is a lot of harm in our consumption decisions, particularly, many of which we don't have a lot of choice in. But we do have some choice, and we are responsible for those choices. Because yes, we are going to do harm living our lives, but the ethical thing is to be responsible for that harm. And so, if there is no ethical consumption under capitalism, then the question is how do we do our best ethical choices that we can? And this requires a certain amount of moral math. And the thing is, there is no perfect standard. No one can give you a list of choices or answers that will make your life the least harmful and have the least harmful impact on others. You have to make those choices yourself based on your own circumstance, because we all have different circumstances. For hundreds of years, philosophers have tried to find a universal rule of perfect ethics, and it's never quite worked. Kant particularly, his one of his categorical imperatives was to behave as if your actions were the model for every if your choices were applied universally to everyone, what would be the impact? And to consider that. But we all live under different, we all live in different circumstances and in different moments. So ultimately, you kind of have to look at your own circumstances and decide what is right for you. And so let's look at the moral math in terms of this game. I figure you have a few different options. You can not buy the game and talk about the harm, which is the choice that I'm making. It may not be the best choice for you. There's also not buying the game and not saying anything. Maybe you're not in a position where you have anything that you think would be useful to say, or you are not in a place where where you feel safe to say something. It's okay. Um, we all do the best we can in the circumstances we are in. That's what it means to try and live ethically, is to try and do the best you can in the circumstances you're in. And no one is in perfect circumstance. Another option is to buy the game and say nothing. It's not great, because you're still contributing financially and contributing social capital with the statistics, but you're not contributing to the discourse. And the discourse is the most harmful thing. So it's not great, but it's a decision that you can make if you feel like that is the right decision for you. Or you can buy the game and talk about the transphobia positively. That is a choice you can make. You can choose to do harm. I don't know why you want to make that choice, but it is your choice to make. You take responsibility for it. And that responsibility includes that I will think you're a transphobe because you are. And then there is the choice that some folks are making that's a bit troubling, to buy the game and defend their choice in doing it. So they are adding to the discourse, keeping it relevant and buying it while also saying that they don't agree with her. And one, that's kind of an interesting ethical choice because that's not taking responsibility for your actions. And it causes harm because particularly a lot of these people are trying to get trans people to like say that it's okay and that they're good people, or they are attacking those who are saying that buying the game is a bad choice and harming the people who are there. The people who are saying that are mostly saying that because they're being harmed. That's prioritizing your own ego of the need to be seen as a good person over harm that is happening to someone else. In fact, harm that you were doing to someone else. And I don't know how you square that circle. It doesn't seem ethical to me. And it is particularly people who feel the need to be seen as allies while acting in a way that trans people have said themselves is harmful to them. That is repeating the harm because it's not just keeping Rowling relevant and the whole Hogwarts thing and telling companies that that is a viable IP that people will still pay money for, even though they don't agree with her. But it's also harmful because it's you're denying the reality that trans people are selling you. Like they're saying this hurts us, and you're saying no, it doesn't. Don't tell me. You know, I'm still your friend. I mean, that is gaslighting. I know people overuse the term, but that's what it actually refers to, is when you deny someone's reality. And the harm that transphobes are doing is denying trans people the right to authentically live their lives and to be the authority on who they are, denying their lived reality. So you are harming them in the same way, and yet you want to not be judged for it. I would ask you to think about your choices more. I talked about that wonderful moment of solidarity, which that moment is tainted, but solidarity to me is still the goal. It's hard. It requires sacrifices of us. But in terms of sacrifices, not playing a video game really isn't a big sacrifice. There are going to be bigger sacrifices. And solidarity is important. This is not playing savior or protecting people who are harmed. We want to protect people who are harmed, especially when they are our friends. But that's not really what it's about. Because if you haven't been paying attention, the same people who were calling for bans on trans people in bathrooms, et cetera, are now trying to stop drag shows, and they're trying to stop people talking about being gay, and they're trying in the UK they're trying to resurrect Section 23, whatever, 28, and they're just like, and they're the same people who are banning abortions. The reason we have solidarity is to stand with each other so that we who are minorities become a larger presence. It's not about saving it's not about saving people. It's not about defending the underdog. It is about stopping people who want to harm marginalized people, because we may also be marginalized. They will come for us. And on the subject, although I'm not the best person to speak on it, it should be noted that this game also has deeply anti-Semitic storytelling. And, once again, we need to have solidarity, because nothing good comes when in the wake of anti-Semitism. Nothing good comes from people who want to exclude other humans. Nothing good comes from people who want to treat some humans as less human. The reason that we think about ethics and solidarity and stuff is because we want to make life as livable as possible for as many other people as possible. I mean, isn't that the goal? I suppose for some people the goal is to get theirs and have the best they can and not worry about anybody else. But if that's the choice you want to make, that's the choice that you make, and stop asking us not to judge you for it. I don't know that I've added much of anything useful to this to anyone who's listening, but let's stand with our trans friends. Let's stand against people being harmed for just trying to live their authentic life. And even though a lot of us have good memories and good associations with Hogwarts and that story, we can try and keep some of the memories, but I think it's time we let the world go. pastime. So I've been Sarah, the Fat Culture Critic, and if you want to support me, as always, you can do so by joining my Patreon or by leaving me a tip with either on PayPal or with YouTube's um, super thanks things. And you'll see my lovely $5 or more patrons sort of here. I want to thank them as always and everybody who contributes. Hi, friends. Editing Sarah here. So, I have joined a group of wonderful leftist creators in a place that we are calling Praxis Town. And as part of this, we are going to have monthly calls to action. So, this is February's call to action for you if you would like to do it. It is very, very simple. A great place to start is to know who is your local representative. So, this is an easy task for all of us, including myself, to go and find out who our local representative is and ideally figure out how we contact them. So it's just really useful information to have and a really simple way to get into the habit of doing things that are productive. So look for more calls to action from Praxis Town if you want to join us in trying to do things to actively contribute to the world.